Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
In Jamaica, the opposition attempted to table a no-confidence motion in the House of Representatives. The government members said no. Cue walkout by the opposition and recriminations over attempts, the PNP say, by the JLP administration to thwart democracy and to bastardize parliamentary processes in the name of protecting an embattled Prime Minister. That's the issue I will lift up today to bring some light to the matter on your behalf today on Leeds Story. Let's start the show. Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV. I say welcome back because you were here yesterday and of course you were here last Friday. Parliament is the topic of discussion of events in the Parliament where the opposition MPs walked out of the chamber in protest at what they said was an abuse of process by the Deputy House Speaker in blocking their attempts to move a no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister, well, to table a no-confidence motion regarding the Prime Minister Andrew Holness. One of the most vocal members on the government benches was the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Pearnel Charles Jr., and he joins us now for a quick word about what went down inside Gordon House. Minister, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, George. Good afternoon to all of your listeners and viewers.
All right. So Mark Golding attempted to lay down that motion. The Deputy House Speaker, Heroy Clark, blocked him. Words were exchanged from the perspective of the Speaker down to Mr. Golding and across to the government benches. You stood and you made an intervention. Tell my viewers what was the germ of your intervention and why you felt it necessary to say the words you did.
Well, the reality is that Mark Golding and the opposition came to Parliament with an agenda. They had a very clear plan. It was staged. It is all a gimmick to draw headlines and to distract from the gravamen and the substance of what we should be discussing. And in all of this, Mark, who is trained, is quite aware that this country, we are a democracy and we are ruled as an organized society that respects laws and rules. And one of those rules is that if you have a matter that is before the court actively being considered for adjudication or being adjudicated, it is sub judice. Everybody knows that. It doesn't take much for any investigative journalist to go back. I am sure you can find a clip of Mark himself or other members of the PNP speaking about adherence to the sub judice rule. So why is it that it is good for them when it serves their purpose, but it is something they want to discard when it doesn't serve their purpose? And their purpose is not to seek justice. Their purpose is to continue to try to manipulate the minds of the country, to distract the country, to drag the country into conversation that will disparage the declarant of the Prime Minister. I'm not going to sit in Parliament, particularly as a lawyer, and sit down and allow persons who I know are just there with an agenda to break not only sub judice rule, but to break the standing orders of our Parliament, which all of us know. Matter of fact, it is a convention, George, right? That even without reference to the standing order, once a matter is being dealt with in the court, you just ease yourself until it is there. And it's a reason why. Let me tell you, there's a reason. It's not about blocking it. The matter deserves to be ventilated. It may come out one way or the other. But if you want the matter to be properly ventilated in court without any intervention or any interference, you got to respect the rule. Why does the opposition not want to respect the rule today? What is the need to get up and walk out instead of to discuss why the rule is relevant?
All right. So I've given you the chance to really lay down what the motivation behind your intervention was and the substance of that intervention, Minister Charles. But here's the thing. The sub judice rule, though, is not absolute. You would agree?
I never said it was.
No. I never said that you said it was, but I'm just pointing it out and just asking for your acknowledgement that it's not absolute.
No, of course.
Right.
Most of the rules of law have some exceptions.
Yes.
But you have a determiner. You have a determinant. You have somebody who is always identified to consider and to give their judgment on how the rule is to be operated.
So here's the question then, Minister Charles. So here's the question then. So if it is that we're agreed that the sub judice rule is not absolute and that the Speaker has the power to apply a waiver to the sub judice rule depending on the matter beforehand, was it not then proper for the opposition to make the attempt it did in the hope that perhaps the Deputy Speaker would believe that the matter was warranted proceeding with in the House in the manner that Mr. Golding attempted?
And I have no difficulty with the attempt. They can make any attempt, just as I have a right to get up and call for a point of order. And the reason why I call for a point of order is because I am clear in my view that what the opposition would seek to do is, knowing that this motion ought not to go forward, they would want anyway to read it out so that it can have the same kind of deleterious impact on the Prime Minister. The goal is not to really have the motion go forward. The goal is to continue to muddy the water and to put it
So hear this, Minister.
Sure.
Someone would say to you, then why is it that the government and the Deputy Speaker, who's not a part of the government, he should be an impartial judge, why is it that the Deputy Speaker did not allow the motion to proceed, given that the government has a supermajority on its side and would easily defeat the motion moved anyway? Why not just allow the process to run its course? Go again?
Because that, in my view, would be improper if it is that the Deputy Speaker, who had come to a decision after perusing what was the notice of motion, determined that it ought not to go forward. If it is that he determined it ought not to go forward, it would be nonsensical for him to anyway allow for a debate that would throw the issues into the public domain anyway. If it is that he did not think that it rose to the standard where it should be an exemption, then he is quite correct in ensuring that he shut it down. Once he allowed it, he would have been a contradiction to himself. So he was completely correct.
Yes.
And the reason why I stood is because I knew that what the opposition would try to do through Mark Golding is to use a backdoor approach to put the conversation and the content into the Hansard and into the public domain anyway, and I would not allow for that.
Yes.
Right? And remember now, that was after the Speaker at the time had already indicated where he was going and what his mind was, what was his determination in terms of perusing the content.
Let me ask you, Minister, have you, subsequent to the session of Parliament ending, made yourself aware of what the substance of the motion the opposition leader attempted to table was?
No, I have not, but it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter because, remember, I'm going outside the Parliament, so I want to ask you this. He said that the motion that he was attempting to move, no confidence in the Prime Minister, had nothing to do with the matter that has been filed in the Supreme Court seeking judicial review on about 30 grounds, seeking about 20 orders, and raising 69 points insofar as the grounds for the judicial review being sought. He's saying that, look, the motion has nothing to do with that. Do you buy that argument? Do you buy that argument?
Can I stop you and tell you how nonsensical my learned friend sounds? Mark Golding stood up in the Parliament and told the people of Jamaica that he was not aware that a matter was in court. Did he not?
That's what he said in the House today.
Did he not in the House today, when I spoke about sub judice, indicate that he was not aware? Come on, man. Listen, we got to stop taking our people for a gimmick. Jamaica is not a comedy show. And that is why us, as the younger politicians, need to start standing up and speaking out in a strident tone. We are not going to allow this country to reverse back to where it was because of persons who take us for a joke. I'm very offended by the approach being taken because I know what they want to do. And I know that the intention is not to protect the interests of Jamaica. It is to tear down anything they have to tear down, even if it means tearing down the reputation of the country in order to get power.
Yeah.
That is wrong.
Yeah.
And I have a duty. Let me tell you something, George. I'm already being attacked, you know. Within 5 minutes of walking out of Parliament, I hear that there are protests planned in my constituency. I hear that there is attacks planned against my sister. Listen, you can't frighten me.
And where have these threats come from? Where have these threats, Minister, you can't give me that and leave it there. Where have these threats come from?
Let me tell you something, man. I didn't even rise to the level of threats. I'm not even trying to be fanciful or to create any. I'm not trying to do that. Okay? What I'm saying to you is that you have persons who are trying to move in such a way, it appears to me that they think this country is a gimmick. They think that the country is a joke. And I have a responsibility, having given my 8 years of service as a minister, I intend to stand up and fight for the interest and the development of my country. Okay?
And just for clarity, Minister, just for clarity.
If you look under the social media post, okay, one of my cousins from England has sent it to me, of what people are trying to say now about me. Let me tell you, it's not going to bother Pearnel Charles.
Just for clarity, Minister, just for clarity, when you say attack on your sister, you mean your sister in the Parliament, Dr. Charles, Michelle Charles?
What I'm saying to you, is I'm not trying to make this about us.
No, man. I know you are not. I know you are not. But hold on, Minister. We have to clarify for the people listening on. I don't want to leave them out of the conversation.
I'm not trying to make this about...
Yes, but I need the clarity for my viewers watching on. They want to know which of your sisters you speak. You don't have one. That's the problem.
I have 4 sisters. And let me make it clear. We ain't no victim. Okay? We grew up in this. We went through this. And that's why we have been prepared to fight this battle. I'm prepared for this. Okay?
You say this battle. Which battle? You say this battle. Which battle?
The battle that we're fighting now is a battle to maintain the focus of our people and the development of our country. Too much good is happening in Jamaica for us to allow for persons to mix up the pot and only try to pick out the negative and then to try to tear down the head of the government. It is a playbook that has been used over and over and over by that party. Okay? And today is a very good representation of the pattern. Come into Parliament with an agenda, walk out. Some of them didn't even want to walk out. Go back and look on the tape of them smiling and laughing. They didn't even want to walk out. They had to follow the leader.
Yes. Minister, we're out of time. Thank you very much for your time this evening and do what you have to do to keep yourself and your family safe.
We will do so.
Pearnel Charles Jr., the Minister of Labour and Social Security and the Member of Parliament for South East Clarendon. Back with more Lead Story after these.
Far Father, what you doing again?
Writing the opera Isaiah. Jamaican opera, master.
Jamaican opera?
Yes. It's about the greatest of prophets.
When is it going to be?
5th and 6th of October.
One
weekend only.
Where can I get my ticket?
You have to check social media, master.
Social media?
Social media.
What father you got high-tech, man?
Yeah, man.
Isaiah, October 5 and 6 at the National Arena. 1 weekend only. Don't you miss it.
Make a move now.
Hi everyone, my name is Kurt Dunn.
Greetings from Kali's Kelly Yoga.
Hey, it's Travin Morrison, and I am your National Physical Activity Specialist. And it's time to make a move.
Jamaica, let's get moving again. Season 2 of the Ministry of Health and Wellness Jamaica Move series is here. Join us Wednesdays at 5 a.m. and Saturdays at 8 a.m. right here on CVM TV. Let's get moving.
Make a move now. When the foot speeds, dance. When the vibe nice.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
The opposition leader Mark Golding stood with his colleagues on the opposition benches. They went outside the parliament to finish up the motion that he intended to table in the House of Representatives this afternoon. He was prevented from doing so by a ruling by the Deputy Speaker that given that the matter that he was speaking to in the Deputy Speaker's interpretation was sub judice, meaning under a judge, under consideration by a court, that it ought not to be mentioned in the parliament. Mr. Golding went outside and finished up just the same. He joins me now to shed some light on matters as they went down in Gordon House today. Mr. Golding, good evening. Welcome to CVM Lead Story.
Hi, good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm fine. All right. We just heard from the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Pearnel Charles Jr., who stood up in the House and spoke while you were attempting to make that presentation where that motion is concerned. He says what happened today with the opposition was a piece of carefully choreographed theatre. He says that you were after headlines, you were after, your aim was to create a spectacle, and there was no substance to what you did. You are here. Speak for yourself. What was the intent of the opposition today?
Well, I would say the way the government handled the matter has created that headline. But we were simply tabling a no-confidence motion in relation to the Prime Minister and his government, which is a very important tool available to the opposition to try and ensure that our democracy is protected when it's under threat from bad governance and other similar risks. Now, as we know, the matter of the Integrity Commission's investigation report has been a swirling issue in the public space since the report was tabled. And I heard today that the Prime Minister is seeking judicial review of various things in relation to that report. My motion wasn't going into the substance of that report. My motion was calling on the Parliament to censor the Prime Minister and to express no confidence in his government because of the fact that the Prime Minister failed to disclose that he had been under investigation for a year, over a year, by the Integrity Commission, which was in breach of the Code of Conduct that had been approved by Cabinet for members of Cabinet back in 2002. And that non-disclosure on his part would have undermined, in our view, the confidence and trust of the public in his leadership. And that is why we brought the no-confidence motion. Minister Charles stood up and sought to say that the motion was inappropriate and in violation of the rules of Parliament because the issue is before the court. I know that the Prime Minister, I've heard that the Prime Minister is applying for leave to seek judicial review of decisions of the Integrity Commission. But I wasn't questioning those issues or going into those issues with my motion. My motion is about the conduct of the Prime Minister in not being forthcoming with the public on matters that he knew impacted him and which he failed to disclose for over a year. And in fact, went beyond that and even imposed a gag order on his own cabinet.
Yes.
And members saying that they should not speak to the media about anything to do with it.
I want to pick you up on a couple of issues, Mr. Golding. But let's start first with the motion. I just want to clarify what you said. You said censure motion, then you said motion of no confidence. You would agree
I
that...
never said censure motion.
You said
that
you said
no
censure. So I just want to clarify that part. Yeah.
Yeah, the motion in it has recitals and a prayer, which is the normal structure of a motion.
Yeah.
And the recital sets out the context, and the prayer sets out what we're asking Parliament to resolve. And the resolutions are that the Prime Minister be censured.
There you go.
For what we have set out in the preamble, and also that the Parliament express its no confidence in the government.
Clarified. Point clarified. So here's the thing now. The issue of the matter being sub judice. So are you arguing that the fact of the document being stamped September 30 by the Supreme Court, the judicial review, and the fact that it concerns the report substantively of the Integrity Commission, the one of August 30 and then September 5, those two reports, the report and the special report, and you're saying that the fact of those filings being a matter of the court record, you don't consider the matter to be sub judice to the extent that you couldn't proceed with the motion in the manner you sought to?
Yeah, I don't. I don't think that the sub judice rule applies to the motion that we were bringing forward. No confidence motions, furthermore, are recognized by the Constitution as having high constitutional importance. They are fundamental to the rule of law in the country and our democracy. Section 64, subsection 5, says that if a motion of no confidence is passed by the House, the Governor-General shall dissolve Parliament so that elections can be called. So it's a one exception to the Prime Minister's right to call an election. It's where a no confidence motion
but you would agree...
Given its central constitutional importance, for it to be for an attempt to be made to block it on dubious grounds of sub judice, which are really not even applicable to the substance of the motion, was an abuse of the majority's power in Parliament today. That's my position.
Yeah, you would agree, though, Mr. Golding, that where you said that the passage of the motion and the implications of its passage, those are uncontestable. But we're talking about the motion as tabled, and the fact is that the importance of the motion you sought to table today can only be determined by the Speaker and the Speaker's chair, because there are waivers that can be applied to the sub judice rule, as you know it, and that waiver is left up to the discretion of the Speaker only. So if the Speaker decides not to wield the power of discretion when a no confidence motion or anything sub judice in his view is in front of him, then he acts as Roy Clark acted today. You wouldn't agree with that?
No, I don't. I think you're wrong. And the motion is saying that the Prime Minister violated and breached the code of conduct applicable to Cabinet, members of the Cabinet, which is a code of conduct that was adopted by Cabinet in 2002 and which remains in place by virtue of his failure to disclose that he himself was under investigation from the Integrity Commission.
And that is the point, Mr. Golding. And that is the point you made. That is the point you made that I wanted to pick out as well.
And that is not sub judice.
Yeah, but hold on. That strand of the motion that you attempted to table, which you read out when you went outside.
That's the substance of the motion.
Yes, but I'm saying...
Motion is about.
Yes, but I'm saying that strand, let me just use that word. That strand concerning what the Integrity Commission said about its investigation into the Prime Minister and the timeline, that is a part of the report, which substantively is what the Prime Minister is seeking judicial review on. So you're saying that notwithstanding that, yes?
The Prime Minister is trying to say that the law that his government passed, his own government passed, is unconstitutional in various respects. He's trying to get the court to strike down the law that creates the offence of illicit enrichment, and he's challenging other aspects of what the Integrity Commission has done. I'm not getting into any of that. I am saying that the Prime Minister failed to disclose to Jamaica for over a year that he was under investigation for illicit enrichment. He knew it and he didn't disclose it. And that was a breach of his own cabinet code of conduct passed, which has been in existence for over 2 decades.
But opposition
and that
needed...
is subject to, in my opinion, a valid basis for...
But opposition needed... The problem you will have with that small part is that you leaned on the Integrity Commission report to come to that conclusion, because it's not a conclusion you made before.
It's a question of facts. It's not a conclusion based on anything other than facts.
Yeah, but
was under investigation.
Yeah.
That is nobody can say otherwise. That is a well-known fact.
But
all that has happened today
yes.
is that the government has used this majority on spurious grounds
yes.
to try and block this matter being discussed in Parliament openly, which is what a no-confidence motion would cause.
The question for you then, Mr. Opposition Leader, is this. Given that you feel, you are confident that sub judice does not apply to this issue and the motion that you wanted to table, are you telling Jamaica that you will continue to speak out about the Prime Minister and matters relating to his integrity germinating from the report because you do not believe that any court action bars you from so doing? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going to delve into the substance of the report in a manner which would violate the sub judice principle. But the issues that were raised in that motion do not violate that principle. And furthermore, the issues are of such public importance,
yes.
I will have to reserve my position on whether or not we are going to discontinue talking about
and may I
just
ask
because,
you,
just because
yes.
the Prime Minister seeks leave from the court, which
yes.
is not yet granted, to seek judicial review.
And may I ask you, but then again, of course, you know, sub judice means under consideration. You know that verb. But let me ask you this last one, Opposition Leader. Are you saying as well that the part of the sub judice rule, which requires a motion that concerns something, whether directly related or indirectly related, that's before the court, to be sent to the Speaker 24 hours before the tabling is done? Clearly, you did not do that in this instance. Do you see that as positive grounds for the motion to have been knocked back by the Deputy Speaker today?
Well, first of all, that was raised as a reason by the Speaker or by Pearnel Charles Jr. So that wasn't on the table. Secondly, no confidence motions are priority motions and are not subject to that.
Well, the Erskine May says where sub judice is concerned and the waiver of power that the Speaker has to exercise, that where it is that a matter is in the court and it is being tabled as a motion, that the Speaker would have to be notified 24 hours before. It says so in black and white where Erskine May is concerned.
That doesn't apply in our jurisdiction because we have rules about the time frame for tabling motion.
Yes.
Erskine May is only where there's a lacuna in our rules.
So you're saying then the last thing I'm asking you to clarify, just to affirm, the rules cited by the government members in the House today and by the Deputy Speaker, they do not apply to what you are trying to do.
I'm saying that the sub judice rule, which is the only rule that was cited, does not apply to what we were trying to do. And it was a blatant attempt to gag the Parliament from discussing a matter of essential public importance. And the sub judice rule should never be used to do that.
Hear you on that, Opposition Leader. All the best. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mark Golding, Opposition Leader and the PNP President there, speaking in his own words about what went down in the House of Representatives earlier today. The opposition walking out, Golding's attempt to table a no confidence motion in the Prime Minister, knocked back by the Deputy Speaker, Heroy Clark, and then on the government benches, the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Pearnel Charles Jr.,